Okay, this is Dell with the Virginia Peanut Growers Association. I think everybody's pretty much knows who I am. I wanted to give a fairly brief, I think, summary of what I talked about at the annual meeting, dealing with production and where we stand right now, what happened last year with the crop and where it has us headed for possibly the 2022 crop. A lot of this information you see right now, a screen that's got acres on it. Just ignore that for a few minutes. We'll get into that in just a minute. I've got one screen that deals with acres, one that deals with yields, and one that deals with production. And the reason I've got these is because I typically go to South Carolina in late January for their annual meeting. I do a lot of information prior to that, and that gives me a heads up on what I want to talk about when we get to our meeting and other meetings that I have in the area and beyond. So we'll get to that in just a second. First, I wanted to talk about our Virginia crop. Don't really know where to start other than for us, it was a record yield, a record year, yield-wise. And probably quality-wise I expect we may have had a couple of years where the quality was a little bit better, but there was certainly nothing wrong with this year. Yield-wise, we're going to end up making 4,726 or thereabouts. That's what the latest figures are. 4,726 pounds to the acre. We started this year with 29,143 acres. First of all, acres wise, that is the most we've had since the program changed, really. If you remember back 2002, prior to that, we had 75,000 acres. We kind of started going down as soon as the program changed, but within a couple of years, we had reached in the low 20 or high teen area, and that's kind of where we stayed for a while. The last few years, we've started climbing. The highest before this year was 2020. The highest before that was 2017. So this year was our highest since 2002 or since the program changed, and it was 29,143 acres. Yield-wise, our biggest yield before this year was 2019. In 2019, we made 4,578. To my knowledge, we have never surpassed 4,600. This year, instead, we're going to make 4,726 pounds to the acre. So by far, it is a record yield for us when it comes to peanuts. Nice to see, and particularly nice to see when you had what I would say is fairly good success with your other crops too. So we've been very blessed this year with our weather, not only all the way through the growing season, but in the fall as well. So good to see. Now, where does that leave us? Let's go to the acres chart that's right here staring at you. What I do, as you can see here, is I started at 2010. Each year I'll drop a year off and add another year to the right. So at this point, 2010 is as far back as it goes. All the way up to 2021. And as I said, I go to South Carolina and give this talk, as well as in some parts of North Carolina also. So really try to include all of the states when it comes to these type of charts. And usually I'll group them Southeast, Southwest, and BC, just to kind of narrow it down. You can see acres wise, the total US, which is near the halfway part of the page. Total US, we had our biggest year in 2017. Since that time, we had 2 years back to back, 18 and 19, that were smaller and basically the same as each other. And we've started increasing a bit since that time. We had the all-time high in 2017. That was the final year of generic base. If you remember, the 2014 Farm Bill brought about a term that we did not know much about before that. It was generic acres or generic base, because cotton chose to get out of the program. And what that did, you can very easily see, is starting in 2015, we went on a nationwide basis up to 1,598,000 acres, went up to 1,652,000 in 2016, and we hit the all-time high of 1,845,000 in 2017. The 2018 crop did not qualify for generic acres, even though it was a year before the Farm Bill changed. But you can see just by getting rid of generic acres, what happened between 2017 and 2018 in terms of the number of acres. That was essentially a 24% drop just from 17 to 18, and that was maintained in 19, and we've started upticking since. Most of that uptick since has been in the Southeast and the Southwest. For this year, well, one thing before we leave this page, the VC contract, you can see the figures there. What I try to do is to just keep track of what our own Virginia contract has been and the years that apply against it. And then at the bottom is the other states, Missouri, Nebraska, Louisiana has always grown some peanuts. So they haven't changed a whole lot, but Missouri is certainly a new player. Missouri almost grows as many acres as we do. Nebraska has just started coming on, and they grow a few acres as well. Most of that I would attribute to the fact that Arkansas has become a fairly big producer of peanuts. You can see across, Arkansas grows 34,000 acres, which again is more than we do. There is a farmer co-op in Arkansas that just built a shelling plant, and they are the reason that the acres are increasing in Missouri, because those Missouri peanuts are going to go into Arkansas to be sold. All right, Livy, if you will, switch to the second page. These are the yields. And again, all the states, all the years from 2010 to now, just concentrating somewhat right at the moment at 2021. 7 states this year averaged over 4,000 pounds to the acre. That's usually been my gauge on how the year went, is how many of the states go over 4,000 pounds to the acre. This year, by far, a majority of them went over 4,000 pounds. It was led by Arkansas with 5,000 pounds to the acre, which is not unusual for them since they are just maybe a 4 or 5 year grower of peanuts. They led this year with 5,000 pounds to the acre. Virginia was number 2 with 4,700, and Georgia with 4,450. The U.S. has only averaged over 4,000 pounds to the acre 3 times. You can see the first was 2012 at 4,192. The second was 2013 at 4,006. And then this year will be not a record, but right behind what we had in 2012. This year is 4,140. 2021 was the 6th highest year for acres. You can see that across the bottom you could see it on the first page, I'm sorry. But you could see, if you were to look at that, this is the 6th highest year for acres planted nationwide, but the 3rd highest year for production. The reason for that, of course, is the yields. The yields were tremendous this year. South Carolina is going to average over 4,000 pounds to the acre for the first time. And Texas also had a good year because it actually rained. And this is their best state average since 2015. The long and short of it is we have record yields in South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Virginia. North Carolina came very close. And with me just mentioning Virginia and South Carolina, and also North Carolina coming right behind it, you can see the average for the VC. The Virginia Carolina area was 43.49. That by far is the best we've ever done. Looking back, we were over 4,000 in 2014. We were over 4,000 in 2017 and again in 2019. But by far, we were over 150 pounds to the acre, better than we've ever done when it comes to the whole VC. All right, Livy, let's go one more time. This one is production. What I do with production is I show you the total nationwide production by area. Southeast, Southwest BC. And then right behind that is going to be the demand. So you can see very easily the production compared with the demand, and you can see whether we made more than we needed or made fewer than we needed. And then the forfeitures come right behind that. We, as far as I know, will not have any forfeitures this year, but it may be some. The runner production, then I break it down between runners and Virginias. I don't get into the Spanish and the Valencias. I pretty much deal with runners and Virginias because that's what we're going to be what we will grow here. Runner production, 85% of all runners are grown in the Southeast, followed by 10% in the Southwest and 5% in the VC. 80% of the Virginia type production was grown in the VC, with the other 20% coming from the Southwest. As you know, there's no Virginias being grown in the Southeast to speak of, and let's hope that continues that way for a while. The total demand for peanuts is expected to be down for the current year. During the pandemic, peanut demand has been very, very high. There was a time where it had become difficult to find peanut butter on some of the store shelves. So total demand for peanuts has been good, but it's expected from those probably record levels, is expected to be down about 5% for the current year. For the August through November time period compared to a year ago, the four categories of peanuts, first of all, peanut candy is up 11.3%. Snack peanuts are down 4.5%. Peanut butter is down 3.3%, and in shells are down 0.5%. All edible usage is down 1.4%. Sometimes some of that's expected. Let's hope it recovers as we go further into the year. The majority of the demand decrease, though, for this year is going to be due to fewer exports. We saw a fairly substantial increase in exports in 2019 and 2020, but sometimes the picture doesn't really tell all the story. The main reason for those increases were shipments to mostly China of farmer stock to be crushed for oil. These supplies were available due to aflatoxin issues in the southeastern crops in 2018 and particularly in 2019. While China shipments increased, the shipments to some of our more important overseas markets, such as the UK, Netherlands, Japan, and Spain, decreased. When I said a picture doesn't really tell all the story, when I say that these end shells are going to China, they are peanuts that are going just for the crushing. And it's great that we're getting them out of our market, getting them out of our supply chain. That's the place where they need to go, is to be crushed, and that's what happened to them. However, as we were climbing with the exports going to be crushed to China, we were falling on the good peanuts for the most part. And we needed the good peanuts to go to these other countries for edible use. When it comes to a farmer trying to survive on the farm, with the prices that are paid for both domestic and export, particularly on the export side, the prices that we get for peanuts to be crushed for oil will not maintain a farm. The peanuts that we get for for edible use on the domestic or the export side is what we need to maintain farms. So again, it was great to get them out of the system. There was a lot of peanuts crushed from the 2018 and 2019 crops because of aflatoxin. Now that we've had two excellent crops, it was the exact opposite for the 2019 and 2020 crops. We went from one extreme of very poor quality to the other extreme of very high quality for the 2019 and for the 2020 and 2021 crops. Both of those are excellent. Very little aflatoxin in the Southeast crop either year. So, but what that has caused is now we've got all good peanuts in the system. We don't have any excess supplies that we can get rid of, and some of them go for crushing. So we've got a lot of peanuts on hand, and that's one of the things that we're running into when it comes to contract prices for the current year. How are the supplies? We have started seeing the first movements of contracts over the last few weeks. As you know, one contract came out, another one has followed. Everybody at this point is in the same range. But there's a lot of factors at play this year. Our commodity prices are up, but are being adversely affected by high fertilizer prices and input costs. I saw something the other day in one of the informational pieces that I get on a daily basis. And it said, and y'all can certainly relate to this probably better than I can, it came from the ERS, which is the Economic Research Service, and it was talking about fertilizer prices, referring to the figure above, which you don't have, but a 25% increase in fertilizer prices results in a decrease of $9.95 per acre in the value of production, less operating cost for sorghum. A 25% increase in fertilizer prices results in a $17.63 decrease in per acre value of production for cotton, and an $11 decrease in the per acre value of production for wheat. And finally, a $29.23 decrease in per acre value of production for corn. That's a 25% increase in fertilizer prices. We've suffered much more than a 25% increase in fertilizer prices. So that just is kind of the tip of the iceberg when we start talking about input cost for this coming year. That's why we're somewhat in a disarray when it comes to contract prices. The estimated carryout of 1,125,000 tons from this year into next year is a little bit on the high side. It's been higher, certainly, but it's a little bit on the high side. And that's given some reluctance to those who want to bring out, or who would potentially bring out a higher contract, is because our supplies on a nationwide basis are a little bit higher than they need to be. And most of that is because we've got such good quality crops. We did not lose any of it to excesses or to be crushed or whatever it may be. It's all good peanuts. So right now, that's kind of where we stand when it comes to somewhat looking ahead. There are contract prices also in the Southeast, or contracts being offered in the Southeast. For the most part, it's in the $500 range, but they are only offering that for about half of your 3-year average production. The rest of it would be contracted at a lesser price. So that's kind of where we stand right now going into another year. Looking at probably summarizing all this, we're kind of where we've been for the last few, and that is we need a good crop. With those yields that I told you before, I don't know if it's getting too greedy to expect a record crop every year. We've had one now for 3 out of 6 years. We've had record crops. It's a lot to ask for to continue to do it again, but when we need that much just to make something off of what you're growing, you're taking an awfully big chance of having one of those off years. So let's hope this year is not one of those, and we will have a 2022 that was very similar to a 2021. That you always know where I am if you got any questions. I'll feel free to let me know if you have any, and if you got any comments on what I've shown you today. Thank you.